Hi, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy.
And this is a Girls in Marketing podcast. Every week, we release a new episode that you won't want to miss. Our guests are industry experts with amazing experiences, so you'll always come away with new nuggets of wisdom. From educational and inspiring episodes covering the latest in digital marketing, to casual and fun chats with the Girls in Marketing team, unpacking marketing myths and trends, we've got it all.
Here at Girls in Marketing, we're all about empowering and supporting women to be the best marketers they can be through our online learning platform and community. Check out our resources and membership to get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle.
Right, let's dive into an episode together. Hello and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Amelia Cohen. Amelia is a solutions engineer for Marketing Cloud at Salesforce. With expertise in customer lifecycles and digital marketing, she helps clients develop and consult on effective marketing strategies for businesses. She also serves as a WhatsApp specialist within Marketing Cloud and is dedicated to staying on top of emerging trends in mobile marketing. Let's dive into the episode. So hi, Amelia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I want to get started and kind of give people a bit of a picture to show them how you got to where you are today. So give me a bit of your kind of story.
So I think with my story, a lot of it revolves around stubbornness. Okay. I feel like in an interview, I would say determination, never saying no, But really, I'd say it's mostly surrounding stubbornness. So I actually come from a politics background. So I did politics and American studies at university. So I wasn't kind of your typical entrant into what I do now, which is a solution engineering role. So I actually heard about the role and through Salesforce, the company that I work for, actually while doing my politics degree, because we were learning about Obama's campaigns and he used Salesforce. So I thought it was a pretty cool company. Was a fresh grad looking for a job, so I applied for the graduate scheme and they rejected me. But again, with the stubbornness, I really wanted a job there, so I was begging the recruiter, how do I get in? How do I maneuver my way here? And he said, look, I can try and squeeze you a spot onto the internship program. And I was like, literally anything that I can do just to get my foot in. So he was like, okay, you're going to move to Dublin though.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll move to Dublin. So I went to Dublin for 3 months to do the internship. And also this was kind of my first role. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. It was just, I really liked the company Salesforce. So I tried out a few different roles there. And that's when I found the solution engineering role. And that was a role that really spoke to me. And I think, I'm sure we'll kind of talk more about the solution engineering role in general, but coming from a politics background, I love telling stories, getting to be around people, getting to influence conversations. And I saw a lot of that within the solution engineering role. But then it was, how do I actually get into the graduate program? Because I had this political background, I had no technical expertise. So one of my managers at the time said to me, look, if you can go get the skill and come back in a year's time, we'll consider it. So I had the internship under my belt. I went and took a bunch of certifications to try and get the job. The next year I was actually able to, but joined in the pandemic. So that came with a whole bunch of new kind of challenges of how do you get a real career path? How do you make a name for yourself when you can't see anyone and when you can't physically be with people? So it was, throwing myself into all different experiences, getting to work with startup businesses where I was able to really start learning about business from top down. Because I think with startups as well, you get a really great exposure to all the key stakeholders in a business because they're all so close. So it was being able to foster a great career path through working in the startup industry, having such a key play into those C-level executives, but then also putting my hand up for everything like speaking roles and being able to present at some really large events. And then I was working on what we call the core side of our platform, so our sales, our service, but I felt like a key piece of the story with customer experience was missing for me. And that's when I started looking into our Marketing Cloud suite of products. And I think also, again, coming back to the politics point, and I feel like I'm rambling a little bit here, but with the politics point, I really am obsessed with how messages make people feel and how you can influence others. And I think that's where marketing, I have no marketing background, but that's really where it started to resonate for me. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, let's throw me into Marketing Cloud as a solution engineer there. But again, they actually had never taken on a graduate because it's a more technical role, because it's very specialized. So it was, how do I speak to all the correct people? Again, the stubbornness, who do I have to find? How do I make it happen? And after a few months of speaking to everybody that I could, going through that interview process, I was able to get into that Marketing Cloud specialist role. And honestly, it's definitely been the most rewarding job that I've had at Salesforce so far.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I have a psychology background. So similar to yourself, it's not really the typical kind of marketing background. But again, I absolutely love how people think and kind of the process behind like why people buy things and, everything that we're going to kind of chat about today with like life cycles and customer journeys and everything like that. I'm so interested in that.
Yeah.
And I think understanding that you were interested from a political perspective originally is so interesting because I think there are a lot of political campaigns that are so interesting to actually look into, and a lot of it does come back down to that like psychology and even like the marketing piece. So it's interesting that that's kind of been the route that you've taken. From what you said, I kind of get the idea that, the solutions engineer role, obviously for someone who maybe isn't familiar with the roles within Salesforce, the solution engineer's role is very similar to kind of like a consultant. So can you explain to me a bit more about like the role and what you actually do?
Yes, I would say it's very similar, but also quite different at the same time. So I think, similar to a consultant, we are sitting down with the business's key stakeholders. We're really kind of diving into their challenges, the goals, what's stopping them from reaching those goals, to then create a very rich solution. I mean, typically with a solution engineering role, we are tasked with delivering that back in a way that's very, in a storytelling manner. So really getting into the heads of the customer specifically. And that's where I actually see the solution engineering role a little bit different to a consultant, because we are really customer obsessed and customer focused. I'm worried about, but what does that mean for your customer? But how does your customer benefit from that? Those are always the questions that I'd be asking. Whereas I think sometimes consultants are really kind of into that business process and how do they fix the business first. Whereas solution engineers, we kind of step back and we really want what's best for the customer's customer. And then I think also what you're saying in the sense of it being similar to a consultant, we are really doing that. There's that creative element to it. There's that business acumen element to it. But then we have this layer of the really deep technical skill where we then have to build them a prototype where that will make sense to fit into that business based on everything that we've discussed. So I think there is definitely a lot of similarities, but the key differences is kind of what makes me, those are the parts that really excites me about being a solution engineer.
Mm-hmm. I love like the idea that it's about the customer, because so often in marketing and in business, people forget about the customer. And that's oftentimes where the issues start, which is so interesting, taking that customer first approach. And that's something that I speak to a lot of people within our community. And it's kind of like actually understanding target audience, who are not just your target audience, but who are your current customers? And as you said, how do they benefit from, what you're putting out there from like marketing perspective and even from a business perspective as well?
100%. I think even, being a Marketing Cloud solution engineer specialist, that even goes deeper, because when we know that the people that sit within marketing and the people that sit within CX especially, they are the people most focused on, okay, what does that customer experience look like? How do we be customer focused? So that's where you really start to get in deep with them about, okay, well, if you send this message, do you know what your customer's response is? What feedback are you getting from the experiences that you're providing out? How often are you surveying your customers? That's something especially I've seen now that I've done both sides, both the core side of the platform and marketing. I definitely am seeing that more as I lean into the marketing side.
Yeah. Let's strip it back a little minute then, because obviously we're kind of diving into like life cycles, customer life cycles. But for anyone who doesn't know, let's kind of like talk a little bit about what they actually are, so we can kind of give people a bit more context. And because I really want to talk about kind of the customer life cycle. But yeah, to give a bit more context, how would you describe what a customer life cycle is?
So it's exactly that to me, right? So it is genuinely every interaction that a customer is having with your brand, whether it be the first time they hear about your brand all the way through to when they're sitting with their friends at lunch and telling them how much they need to buy from your brand because they're so obsessed with it. So it really is just all of those different interactions.
Mm-hmm. And I think as we're now in like a digital generation, a digital society, the life cycle is so different to how maybe it was, even, 50 years ago, for example. The life cycle, I think, when we look at like customer touch points, I always talk about how it's so difficult to get into the minds of a customer because, I think the touch points are anywhere between like 8 and 20 now.
Yeah.
There's so many, especially with kind of social media and everything like that. What would you kind of say are like the key steps in a customer life cycle in like the current kind of day and age?
So I want to get to, I think you made a really interesting point about how there's so many different touch points with a customer now. I think definitely working in tech, we see all of those different touch points. But what we're also seeing is that customers want you to get that message across them, and they want you to understand them at every single touch point. So even though there are all of these touch points, in one way it's nice because you have even more ways to understand your customer now. And it's also harder because they expect that personalization at a crazy scale now, and you have all of these different kind of points to meet them at. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and that is the case as well, isn't it? Even from a consumer perspective, like myself, I always think when there's an extra added element to like my customer journey, being a marketer, I am so aware of like my customer journey with things.
100%.
We did a post on LinkedIn recently, and it was like talking about kind of customer journeys and stuff, and it was so interesting because someone said, I've really wanted to buy this gold necklace for so long, and I've visited the website a few times, I've been on social media, and like they keep retargeting me with ads of this gold necklace, and she said, I'm going to buy it at some point, but I'm not quite there yet. And I think as marketers, we're so
How
aware.
do you close that gap?
Exactly. And it's figuring out, okay, how do we get into the minds of these customers? Because if there's a product that you've been wanting for so long, and maybe you don't really know as a consumer why you don't want it, but then there's something that tips you over the edge, whether it's a particular offer, whether it's a particular like a new feature or anything like that. I think sometimes that is what kind of pushes people over the edge a little bit.
And I was having this with a brand the other day where we were talking about what gets a customer to be pushed over the edge to even that first purchase. And it could be something as small as, they've had that engagement on their site. They're interested because they keep looking. What, do we know that they have a birthday coming up? If they come by the store, could we push them a notification to say, it's your birthday coming up in 2 weeks. If you come in, we'll give you a gift or a special discount or something, just to make them feel like you really understand them. Because coming back to that point, customers want radical relevancy. They want a brand that truly understands them and is willing to speak to them one-to-one. So just showing that, we know you're nearby and it's your birthday coming up, why don't you come in? That's something that will tip someone over.
I think the personalization is a big kind of trend, isn't it, right now, which is it's so relevant because that's something that as a consumer I am actively aware that, as you said, if I was somewhere and they did say, it's your birthday coming up, or there's a lot of like birthday offers, I always feel like, it's so exciting because I go to these places. And I remember last year I went to like a big shopping centre in Manchester, and we went on my birthday and I had loads of these like birthday offers, and I was like, this is amazing, like I'm gonna go to all these shops. Wild. I know, and I did, and I didn't even think about the fact that I then also spent however much in those shops on top of like the free birthday gift. So I feel like as much as it's making me feel valued as a customer, it's equally kind of pushing more sales to this shop or to this site as well.
And I think what's interesting, because sometimes we have it with brands where they're like, but we don't have the money to just be offering discounts every birthday or every first purchase, second purchase. And I'm saying it comes down to the fact that it's not necessarily have to be a discount. It's how do you make someone feel that you understood them and you acted in that moment. So I think Cult Beauty is a perfect example. So they are somebody who they look at your web behavior and they push you out things that are relevant in that exact moment. So I was looking at a brand that's exclusively stocked on Cult Beauty, hadn't purchased from there, and they could see that that was what I was looking at specifically. So they sent me a email to say, this brand that you're really interested in, we are getting the first new product of this launch. Why don't you be the first to purchase? And I was like, wow, you actually are the only brand that's stocking that. How interesting. I want to get my hands on this before anyone else does, because you are exclusively stocking this brand and who knows how many are left. But it's that, it doesn't have to be something like an offer. Just being relevant and being useful is something that makes such a difference.
Yeah, it's that added value, isn't it? So as long as you can provide people with valuable content, whether that is an email, whether that's something on social, whether that's something that's not digital at all, maybe it's physical, I think that added value piece really helps.
Sure.
So talking a little bit about the life cycle then, what would you say are kind of at the moment the key stages in like a customer life cycle? I know it's hard because every business is going to be different, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't actually feel like, even though the businesses can be very different, the stages don't vary too much. I mean, I work with both B2C and B2B businesses across industries, and it all seems to come back to, I'd say there's like 4 to 5 critical stages. So that would be that awareness piece, consideration, acquisition, retention, and then advocacy, loyalty. So that awareness is really that first time a customer actually hears about your brand, starts having that initial interaction, going through to that consideration. So how do you close the gap between what a customer knows about your brand versus what you know? Because there's so much information out there now. How do you get the customer to what they need to see and what they need to understand as quickly as possible? Because customers will come to your website for various things. You need to understand this person's looking for X and you're able to provide it to them quickly. And then it's that purchase piece. So that conversion, when somebody's actually made that point of sale, how do you kind of congratulate them in that, make them feel heard, make them feel like you've actually said, you've bought this from us, how amazing, let's keep the conversation going. And then the final stages, which is around the retention and the advocacy piece. And often people put them together, but I would actually separate them out, because retention could be someone's made that first purchase. How do you drive them to a second and third? So how do you make that customer go from that one purchase to being your customer for life? So every time they purchase something, they want to know if you stock it, because you're their kind of trusted partner in that avenue. So for example, coming back to Cult Beauty, because I have such great experiences with Cult Beauty, it took me about 2 or 3 purchases to decide that now Cult Beauty was my vendor of choice for beauty products whenever I buy something. And that takes you into that advocacy piece, because now they got me with that 3 purchases. They tailored the experiences to get me to that third purchase where I say, okay, I'm now your customer for life. And now I'm in the advocacy stage. I'll speak about it on a podcast. I'll tell all my friends, if they're looking for something, you should go to Cult Beauty because they do it better than everybody else. And that's a really key piece as well, because we've seen with influencers and everything and the explosion of shopping on TikTok. I mean, I don't even want to get onto how much TikTok has influenced me to purchase, but people really value word of mouth. I'd say more now than I've seen ever previous before, in the sense of we don't even want adverts from influencers anymore. I want to see somebody with minimal followers just actually showing me how much they love a product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And I think so many people and brands forget about the advocacy. And I think I really like the fact that you kind of brought that up, because that's something that I am a massive advocate for, is as well, even that community piece. Like, there's so many brands doing it really well.
Yes.
I spoke on a podcast not too long ago now, actually, one of our snack episodes about Nike, which also could be known as Nike. I know people are a bit like whatever, but Nike, who are great at that kind of advocacy piece because they create like communities. So it's that shared experience of like, you know, not necessarily everyone who owns Nike, but they go on runs together. They do like run clubs and stuff like that. It's almost like they become a brand ambassador for you, and it's so amazing to see brands leaning into that, because for so long I think with a customer life cycle people have forgot and they think it ends at first purchase or it ends at even retention. But even though you had like 2 or 3 purchases from Cult Beauty, for example, you've still had to then have a positive experience after those 2 to 3. So that advocacy piece, because if you had a negative experience with any brand, even if you purchased off them 10 times, that one time is gonna affect it, isn't it?
And I was speaking about this actually just yesterday with a very well-known kind of voucher company. And I was saying to them, you know, customer experience and customer service is coming so deeply intertwined with marketing now, because customer service is almost becoming a spectator sport. Everyone can see whether someone's had a bad experience with you, because people are so much more willing to post that online, to tell their friends, to be vocal about it, because no one's going to speak about a mediocre experience. They either speak about the amazing experiences or the bad ones. So whether it's, you know, you go onto Google and they've got terrible Trustpilot, or just Google reviews, all the way through to searching. I mean, I now search things on TikTok before I purchase it, because I want to see if anyone's had a bad review or hasn't received what they ordered. Especially with cost of living crisis, people are much more focused on where they're putting their money, and they don't want to get scammed, or they don't want to purchase something that isn't going to arrive. So I think service also has to come a lot more into the equation when it comes to marketing, because it has become this spectator sport where it's just as important as your social media marketing is how people are reviewing you.
Yeah, and it's running everything. It's kind of like making sure everything runs nicely together, because again, you can have amazing marketing efforts, but if your product or if your kind of customer service doesn't live up to that, then essentially you're just either selling a product that isn't going to live up to expectation, or, you know, once people have bought the product, they're not able to be looked after properly by anyone. And I think so many businesses forget that. They think, you know, when we've got this product, it's like a mediocre product, but we're going to put loads of money into paid ads and we're just going to, you know, push it as much as possible. But it's about that whole kind of brand experience, isn't it?
And I'll tell you, the last thing a customer wants when they've had a bad experience is to get a paid ad from your brand. That, or even, I mean, we speak about this all the time within Marketing Cloud, is if I've had a terrible experience and I've told you, or I have a case open, do not send me a promotional code via email about your latest offer and all of this and that, because clearly let's solve the issue that I'm having first before you go and target me. And again, that just comes back to that life cycle piece.
Yeah, it'd be good to kind of chat about like a customer life cycle and like how different points refer to like different points in marketing. So for example, if you think about awareness, like maybe that's like social media, and I think from a kind of conversion perspective, I think email plays a big role in that. So don't know if you have any experience with like utilizing certain marketing channels or advising to utilize certain marketing channels for certain areas of like the customer life cycle.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think the kind of advice that I typically give is, I wouldn't say it's one channel for each stage, or I favor certain channels in certain stages. I think what I'm most concerned about is, do you have the data accessible to the people who need it? So no matter where a customer is and no matter what channel they're interacting, that message is consistent, it's relevant, it makes sense, and it's one-to-one. So, and that's not an easy task. What we're seeing, especially what I've noticed, is there's data all over the place, whether your service team has a bunch of data, whether there's website data, whether there is behavioral data, it's all sitting in different places. And a lot of the times, the marketers only have a small subset of that. So we're giving them a very big task to say, you have to be able to personalize and make these amazing one-to-one experiences no matter where somebody is. So that's, I guess, where the marketing automation and things like Salesforce and Marketing Cloud and all these other products that exist now come in, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to close that gap, and we're trying to make sure that all of that data is in the hands of the people that need it most, so that we can start doing things like that and saying, we have all of this data. What are these people interested in? What are their affinities? What are their behaviors? And then deliver experiences that match where they are. So whether it be an awareness stage where someone's just learning about your brand, have they been looking at specific product areas so that the next time they come back to the website, that's front and center, so they have what they need as quickly as possible, all the way through to you've got that retention, you've got that first purchase. What do we need to get that person over the edge to now be a customer for life? I often say to businesses, and this is aside from the data collection, but do you actually know what it takes, how many purchases it takes to make a customer an advocate? And that's really important data, because if you say it's 4 and you have somebody who's got 3 purchases, maybe they're the best people to send out offers to. Maybe you don't need to waste those offers or waste ad spend on somebody who's bought that first purchase if you're only trying to tip over 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. So it's really all very much, I kind of steer away from specific channels, more towards getting really clear on the data that you have and making that actionable.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I think there's a lot of challenges when it comes to like customer life cycles and getting people over the line from a certain stage. So as you said before, from awareness to conversion, and even from when they purchase to that like retention, and then again from like retention to kind of advocacy. I don't know if you have any experiences with kind of actually those challenges that come up and like how people can like conquer them.
I think one thing that I've noticed challenges wise with marketers is all the way through the past, marketers have been rewarded on filling the funnel. They've been rewarded on acquisition. How many leads do you have? How many conversions? It's very much been just filling that top funnel. But we now know with CX that that's not going to work anymore. People are demanding personalization. I saw a stat from, I think it was McKinsey or something, but they said that over 50% of customers will switch brands if they're not personalized too. So you have this situation now where marketers are used to just doing top funnel content, but now they have to really focus on personalizing a lot further down, because people will just switch brands once they've purchased now. So how do you keep that personalization going through that bottom funnel piece? So I think the key challenges that marketers are having to go through a real shift in perspective. I would say they're having to lean on other teams like services or sales even to understand more about their customers and where they are and what they're interested in. But I think in terms of wider challenges that I'm seeing, I think the shift from a acquisition perspective to a retention perspective has been a big one. But then, just smaller challenges that I've seen with specific brands is a lot of them are saying that conversion process. I had it with a fashion brand where they said, we are having really low conversion rates at the moment. We don't understand it. I went onto their website and I had my own experiences. I just wanted to see what it was like, because again, solution engineer, we're thinking of their end customer. And I put a bunch of items in my basket. I think it was about £2,000 worth of clothing. I didn't even get an abandoned basket message. So, and it was that little switch that can, help them with uplift. And as soon as we had that meeting and we had that playback, they were able to say, we actually didn't know that wasn't working. Making that change already has made a difference for them.
Yeah.
And then, we have other examples as well of people who are like, people are going onto the website and showing engagement, but not purchasing. And I always go back to that radical relevancy point of, are customers getting what they need quickly? Because people are less tolerant now of waiting for information. And it's not necessarily, I keep hearing about, people have short attention spans now. People don't want to wait. People binge watch 8 seasons of a TV show. it's not that it's a short attention span. It's more that people will not wait to be given the content they want. So it's I think that's a key challenge, is what we think to be the case about customers and what's the real reality.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that you said that, because I have heard that, attention span, we've got really bad attention spans and it's all because of TikTok and it's all because of these videos. But again, I really like the idea that, it's not that, because as you say, you can sit in front of a TV and binge watch, whatever show. And it's not the fact that you can't sit there and watch it. It's the fact that it's available to you right now.
Yeah.
So it's how, as marketers, do we utilize the information, and how do we give people as much as possible? Because people can make their own decisions. And I think that's
and people will make time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what people forget, is that people make decisions based on the information that they've got available to them.
Yeah.
So whilst you may have someone that visits your site, says, I really want to purchase something, and maybe they think, I'll go away and I'll think about it, but then that brand never contacts them again, or never even, as you said, doesn't personalize anything to them, and then they just forget about it, and then a month or two later in comes a competitor that has done their research and understands, and then they sweep away that customer. It's kind of like you're not doing enough to understand the processes behind actually making sure a customer feels valued.
And with that competitor point, people will switch to competitors not because of price or quality or products. They will switch because that gave them what they wanted quicker. They did it in a way that was more relevant. It's not necessarily coming down to products and services and pricing anymore. It is around how quickly do they get that? How, was it able to be tailored? And I think that I'm definitely seeing come into the conversation a lot more now.
It's the case, isn't it? It's do I want to spend a bit more and get faster delivery, for example. I personally would spend a little bit more on a product or a service if I knew that it was high quality, or I knew that I was going to get it quickly, or anything like that. I think having that available information is so key.
I was having a really interesting conversation with a brand the other day. We were talking about, I was giving a personal example of, I had been saving up for a pair of Prada shoes.
Okay.
And I was very excited about this purchase. And I went onto Google, as we all do, and there were 3 options. I could either buy it from the Prada website, I could buy it from Matches, or I could buy it from 24S. And none of them had my size. And I was like, okay, let's see if, whichever one of them has my size. But 24S was actually the cheapest option, and Matches was next, and Prada was the most expensive. So I went on to 24S trying to contact somebody. They had a chatbot. I was like, great. We love quick service, not having to speak to a human. So I went onto the chatbot and it was completely broken. I couldn't work out a way to speak to to anyone to even find out my shoe size. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be going with them, even though they are the cheapest option. So I could have, maybe just checked back in a week later. But I was like, if this is how they behave before they have my money, how are they going to act when something goes wrong, or once, I've actually made the purchase? And Matches was a little bit better, but I had to email them. And we're talking about that time and relevancy and wanting to get things done quickly. I didn't want to go and set a whole subject line and email message. So I wrote them the email. It took me ages. I was like, even if this comes through, I don't know if I want to buy them here. Prada, I was able to start a conversation via WhatsApp so quickly. They told me, this is when the shoe's going to be in stock. We can let you know when it is. We'll come back to you. Don't worry about it. And even though Prada was the most expensive option, when they did have my size in stock, they all had my size in stock. But I went with Prada because I want to know that once I've purchased, if anything goes wrong or I need anything, they were so quick to help me. And that's what we care about now.
Yeah. That's interesting, because it goes back to the point that we were obviously talking about earlier, which was having your kind of values and everything throughout everything. So throughout your customer service, throughout your marketing, throughout your sales. So that process, obviously marketing plays a key point in a customer journey, but so does customer service, so does sales, so does everything else. So it's about making sure that kind of works all together. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of ask you about, a case study or an example of a brand that you've helped optimize that customer life cycle.
I would say a lot of what I focus on with marketers now is around, like you said, that advocacy, retention piece. I don't typically focus more on that beginning of the funnel. I say I'd see the most success when I work with customers on that end piece of how you create those advocates. I had it with a coffee brand actually, where they were pretty successful in the sense of they wanted to, coffee's hard, there's coffee everywhere. You can go down the street and find a coffee brand. How do you convince somebody that they're going to go an extra 10 minutes just to get your coffee? And I think that's where if we're talking about success stories, push notifications was a big thing for that business. So being able to use things like Bluetooth beacons and being able to use geolocations to say, if they're in the vicinity, how do we stop them going to somewhere else? And how do we get them to just travel that little bit further? So sending them an offer to say, you were looking at this online, or this was your last coffee order. Do you want to come in and just purchase it really quickly again? And I think push notifications work really well in those scenarios, especially with physical stores, because they can really drive somebody in. And when we're talking about, I think as well, post-pandemic, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but a lot of clients have kind of come to us saying, how do we get people back into the store? How do we reimagine the store experience? Push notifications is a really quick win way of doing that, but making sure it's relevant. So I don't just want, if I'm walking by, hey, come into store, it's, hey, I saw you doing this on the app last week. We actually have an experience going on right now. Come in. Or you've made 5 purchases with us. You're one of our top customers. Come in and we've got a free gift waiting for you. I was in Space & K. I was walking by the other day and I got a notification saying it's your birthday. We have a gift bag for you. I went into store, I had a gift bag. It was amazing. Yeah. And Space & K is another brand. I know I've talked a lot about beauty brands, but Space & K is another brand who do that very well.
Yeah. I love Pret in terms of the advocacy and everything like that. Obviously the kind of recent thing that they released, which was the loyalty kind of the subscription. And I think so many brands should be leaning into that. There's so many other brands, obviously where we're based in the north, there's not really many Pret. So there's no point in me purchasing that, but I know 100% that I would. There's a small coffee chain in Liverpool that I think they have 2 or 3 stores, and they recently within the last few months have rolled out a very similar thing. So it's a subscription because they have 2 or 3 in Liverpool. Obviously it's walkable in Liverpool, so if you are in one place, you only need to walk 5 minutes or 10 minutes and you're at one of their stores. So they released one of those very similar subscription. I don't know how successful that is, but I just think that for me is something that is so valuable, because not only are you obviously getting X amount of free coffees, well, not free, but you pay for them through the subscription. But I think that's such a good way to have people to know that people will always come back to your brand.
It's also great for word of mouth. I know I've kind of gone on about it throughout, but word of mouth, I saw so many social media posts. I heard about it from so many people. I hadn't even heard about it from Pret. I heard about it through everybody else. So have you heard about this subscription? How amazing you get this amount of coffees. And that's talkable moments that get, people can become your own marketing campaigns and it costs you no money. So doing something that creates a moment to talk about is something else that can be so effective. There's a great story about the DoubleTree Hilton hotels, and they have something where they offer you a free warm cookie as you walk in to your reservation. They are very standard hotels, but everybody goes on about this cookie. People go to the hotel just so that they can get that warm cookie. And they've almost owned that welcome experience to say, you're coming to this hotel, this experience is something that you're not going to have anywhere else. And it gets talked about. I looked at it on social media. If you type in DoubleTree Hilton, all of the Twitter posts are going to be about this cookie. And it's just, how do you create this talkable moment to have your own free marketing campaigns that you don't have to run yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like user-generated content, isn't it? You know, how do you create an experience? I was speaking to someone recently in a one-to-one that I had, and they had to like create a campaign for it as part of an interview process, and the brand was like quite a big brand, and they'd been asked to create like some sort of social media campaign, and I said, really try to talk about user-generated content. How do you work with different teams, or whether it's a product team or whether it's a service team, to actually create an amazing experience that people want to post about it? Exactly like the example that you give, the fact that people get like a free cookie when they go somewhere, they're going to post on Twitter, they're going to post on Instagram, like people will talk about those, and some people, some brands, just forget that and just forget about how do we almost utilize the people that are already paying us money to stay at our hotels, to buy our products, to buy our services. How do we use those people as a marketing tool? It's so interesting.
And again, that comes back to the point of why we need to really focus on the lower part of the funnel, because one and done acquisition, those kind of purchases leave so much value behind that your customers can become your number one advocates, can tell everyone about you. And I think it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah. So you mentioned before about when you went on to the beauty brand and they, you know, you added all of the close to your cart and you didn't get an abandoned cart. I think, you know, we've spoken previously, and something that you're really passionate about is understanding like a day in the life of a customer. And I think that is a key part of like the life cycle. So is that when you start working with a new client, is that what you do first? Like understand the customer? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite parts of working with customers and being a solution engineer. It's what we call the discovery phase. So it's that phase leading up to the actual read back presentation where we show them something tangible. So it takes on various different forms depending on the customer, depending on how much time we have. But typically, I would start by doing my own research. So I would try and find out more about reviews, what it's like to be their customer from customers' perspectives, try to understand holistically more about the brand, but then normally taking part in what we call a mystery shop. So I would try and experience being a customer myself, whether it be days or weeks that I go through this process, but really trying to understand every element. So the awareness phase, what do I feel like I learned about the brand? I'm about to find out all about the brand from their C-level executive. When I speak to them, I can kind of feed back to them as well. Well, if they tell me a bunch of stuff about their brand, I could say, well, in that awareness phase, I wouldn't have known anything that you just told me, because again, there's that big gap between what your customer knows and what you understand about the brand. So that's a key piece, is really kind of with that mystery shop, going through each stage and thinking, as a customer, what did I learn here? How do I feel? What was the experience? Am I happy with the experience? Comparing it to other brands or competitors that I've seen or shopped with, does this match up? Would it drive me to purchase? Would I go somewhere else? Even, I would fake purchase something on their website. I would go right through to, did I have a good delivery experience? When I went and sent it back, was that experience handled well? Did it take ages to get my refund? Because as much as it's about marketing, that whole experience is going to affect whether I come back again and again as a customer. So that's probably a big bulk, is that mystery shop piece, and really taking detailed insights throughout of how I felt. So that's really key. And then we would actually go in and speak to the key stakeholders, whether it be their C-level, their marketing team, their CX team. And we'd start understanding from them those elements, like I said, like goals, challenges, but then more deeply, more about what they know about their customers. So one of the key questions I ask is, what do you know for fact about your customers and buyers? What do you think you know? And what do you wish you knew? Because there'll be very different answers. Sometimes, I even go down to the detail of, do you know how they consume content? Do you know what they like to do in their day? Sometimes we'll even get up a whiteboard and start drawing what their customer would look like. So really trying to press them, because one of the things I've noticed as well is oftentimes marketers don't know a lot about the customers because they're not the ones spending time with them. So it's then, who do we need to get in the room that actually speaks to customers? Maybe it's even the customer service team, to start understanding more about who those people are, because data can tell us, a great amount of detail, but there's a bunch of niche contextual elements that the marketing team just sometimes can't provide. So
yeah, it's so interesting, because sometimes as well, I think from another perspective, sometimes people think that they know what the customer is and who the customer is, but they don't. And I think that putting yourself in the shoes and actually maybe, as you say, being the customer, even if it's like for a few days, and just kind of understanding the experience, even just doing that discovery can really help, because it's research, and it's giving you that opportunity to say, actually, I thought we had an abandoned cart on and we don't. Or actually, I thought that we had this email offer in a flow and we don't. Or it's not turned on, or something like that.
That happens a lot. I would say a lot of the times. So we present back the mystery shop. So I'll present each stage that I had and my findings, my experience, what I wish had happened versus what actually happened. And a lot of times there'll be kind of arguments within the room of, wait, I thought we had that, or why does that not exist? And they'll be discussing, because a lot of them don't take the time to be their own customer. They may test the products or make sure from a quality perspective that's all working. But in the sense of the experience, they're not really doing an audit themselves. I mean, that's another question I ask, is how often do you do an audit of your customer experience? And oftentimes it's never. So it does give interesting results, and it's definitely a good thing to bring to those kind of teams, because they do sit there and they're like, wow, there's things that really quickly they can fix just from understanding what my experience was. But then there's some real, okay, we need to go into this more and understand why this doesn't happen, or how we can do that, because clearly we're not doing it right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of touch on, because you're the WhatsApp specialist within the Marketing Cloud. And I think, we obviously spoke about WhatsApp before, and kind of the part that it plays within the whole cycle in general. I'd love to kind of talk about being in this like post-pandemic world, this like very digital society. What kind of part does WhatsApp play within like the wider marketing strategy?
So I would say that I love WhatsApp. I love what WhatsApp is kind of doing in the business space at the moment. It's all new, but it's all very exciting. I think what you said about post-pandemic and transformation is so true. We're seeing that time is more critical than it's ever been before, definitely post-pandemic. People are no longer willing to wait. If we look at trends like the Great Resignation, or just the way that people are honing in on the time that they spend and what they spend it on, we now interpret brands that speed up as brands that care about us. And that's really where WhatsApp is able to play amazingly for brands, because it's a real-time messaging platform. They can get messages out to customers that are relevant and useful very, very quickly, no matter where they are. So whether it be somebody wants to know more about a product, all the way through to 6 months after they've bought a product, it's probably ran out and they may need a new one. How do we send them a message to make sure they can purchase that really quickly, all from this channel that they're very used to? I think one of the big things with WhatsApp is it's got all of these great qualities, which is why everyone's using it right now. It feels like a community place. I was speaking about it with some of my friends. It feels like a place where everyone is. So when we're talking about personalization and one-to-one, and how people want to be closer with brands now, it's a very unique position that you're giving to brands to say, you can now be on this platform where everybody feels very comfortable and everyone feels like they can have this really deep connection.
Because everyone understands it as well. You've got different generations, like my nan's on WhatsApp, the older family members are on it, because it's easy to understand.
Exactly.
And I think if you think about it, even from like a chatbot perspective, obviously you can utilize WhatsApp for marketing, but even from a chatbot perspective, you can use it on the go. Yeah. And honestly, whenever I see like a WhatsApp integration or someone, utilizing WhatsApp, I'm like, it's so easy, because half the time I'm like, okay, a chatbot's great, and I definitely think that's a step in the right direction.
Then you have to stay on the browser.
Yeah, exactly.
And all those other things.
It's not always ideal, is it? Whereas WhatsApp, it's like, it's on your phone. You can, you can chat for as long or as short as you want. It can be like a really easy. It can be really easy for you to utilize. So then finally, I just wanted to kind of talk about like WhatsApp and mobile and the future, because I think, these are platforms that are always evolving. We know in general so many platforms evolve over time, but I don't know if you can give any insight, obviously not specifically, but kind of talking about WhatsApp and what's going to happen with it in the future and evolving in the new kind of digital generation that we have.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think my number one thing is WhatsApp's not going anywhere, especially where businesses are concerned. Businesses are just now tapping into it, some for the first time. I think Meta is doing a very good job in tapping into that and really expanding what you're able to do on WhatsApp. Some of the innovation that I've seen that is to come is very exciting, whether it be, like you said, now being able to talk to service agents via WhatsApp, making purchases on WhatsApp. I saw the other day in Brazil, you can have catalogs now of all the businesses that operate on WhatsApp. And I just think WhatsApp, because it's obviously a company instead of something like SMS, which is just kind of, you would get it through an aggregator and it's just very wide. There's no one really controlling that. With WhatsApp, they're really trying to innovate there, and they're really thinking, they know WhatsApp is I think there's 2 billion active users on WhatsApp. It's got like a 98% open rate. For businesses, that's crazy. The potential that you can reach, the potential you can influence. And Meta are doing great things to protect customers, users, people on the platform, but then they're also giving businesses this very unique position to be able to activate all of these customers and activate the great, open rates and everything that comes with it, and say, we're going to keep making this easier and easier for you to communicate with your customers. So I would say this is probably just the start. I would say that there's a lot more innovation and a lot more to come, and it's all very exciting, and I think it'll be great for brands but also great for customers.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for today. It's been such an insightful discussion. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review to let us know your thoughts, and make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button to be the first to hear when our new episodes released. Don't forget, if you want to get involved with Girls in Marketing, check out our membership to join our incredible community of marketers. Think marketing resources, courses, webinars, and more. Find out more on our website or drop us a message on any of our social channels @Girls in Marketing.